Emily stood in her kitchen, the soft hum of the refrigerator the only sound breaking the silence of the house. It was late, too late to be up, but she couldn't seem to sleep. The house felt unnervingly quiet, and as she wiped her hands on the dish towel, a strange noise broke through the stillness, a scratching sound. At first, she thought it might just be the wind or maybe a branch brushing against the window. But then it came again, louder, more insistent. Her heart skipped a beat. It was coming from the wall. Emily turned toward the sound, her pulse quickening. She had lived in this house for years, and never had she heard anything like this before. It wasn't just the sound of nails on wood, it was frantic, almost desperate. She glanced at Buddy, her golden retriever, lying at her feet, eyes locked on the wall where the noise was coming from. He was unusually still, his ears perked as if listening intently, his nose twitching in confusion. "Buddy, what is it?" she whispered, half expecting him to somehow answer. But Buddy merely tilted his head, his expression one of deep curiosity. The scratching sound came again, this time followed by a faint thudding as if something, or someone, was trying to break through from the other side. A chill ran down Emily's spine. The wall? What could possibly be behind the wall? Her thoughts raced. She knew the house had been built years ago, and there had been rumors about the previous owners. But nothing, not even her wildest imagination, could explain what was happening right now. For a moment, she considered ignoring it. Maybe it was just some kind of rodent, or perhaps a pipe in the walls had loosened. But there was something about the sound that didn't sit right with her. It wasn't random or natural. There was intent behind it, someone, or something, trying to get out. "Okay, I'm going to check it out," she muttered to herself, trying to sound more confident than she felt. Buddy looked up at her as if sensing her hesitation, then padded softly toward the living room. He didn't bark or whimper, but there was an urgency in his steps that spoke volumes. Something was not right. Emily grabbed the flashlight from the kitchen drawer and approached the wall where the noise seemed to originate. It was an old part of the house, a narrow hallway with peeling wallpaper and forgotten corners. Her heart raced as she slowly reached for the wall, pressing her ear against it. The scratching had stopped, but the unsettling silence that followed felt even more suffocating. Without thinking, she grabbed the hammer from the nearby toolbox, a strange sense of determination filling her. She was done waiting. Whatever was behind that wall was not going to hide any longer. With a few hard swings, she began tapping on the wall, each strike sending a jolt of adrenaline through her body. The sound echoed through the empty house. Buddy had stopped in the hallway, watching her closely. His gaze never wavered from the wall. He seemed almost tense. As Emily struck the wall again, a small crack appeared. Then another. She swung harder, desperate now, each hit ringing out through the quiet house. Finally, with one last strike, a large chunk of plaster broke free, and Emily froze. Behind the wall was something unexpected. It wasn't just space, it was a box. A small wooden box, tucked away in the recesses of the wall, hidden for who knows how long. Her breath caught in her throat. What was this? Why was it hidden in her wall? She knelt down to pull it free, her hands trembling slightly as she brushed the dust off the surface. The box was old, its wood faded and chipped, but there was something about it that called to her. It was heavy, like it carried the weight of years, maybe decades, of secrets. Buddy, now standing just behind her, let out a soft whine, his body tense. It was as if he knew something she didn't, something important. She stared at the box in her hands, her heart racing as she slowly lifted the lid. Inside, wrapped in a faded cloth, was a collection of photographs, yellowed with age, and a letter, sealed, yet waiting to be opened. Emily's breath caught in her throat as she stared at the letter, unsure of what it held or how it had found its way into her home. But before she could read a word, she heard it again. That scratching sound. It was louder now, almost frantic. Emily glanced at Buddy, who was now growling softly under his breath. He was staring directly at the box. She shook her head, trying to make sense of it all. What was happening? Was this all some strange coincidence? Or had Buddy somehow known this moment was coming? With a deep breath, Emily opened the letter, unaware that the truth it contained would change everything she thought she knew about her life and her family. But first, she had to read it. Emily's hands shook slightly as she unfolded the letter, the fragile paper creasing under her fingertips. The handwriting was elegant but shaky, as if the person who had written it had poured all their emotions into each word, knowing that these words might one day reveal secrets buried deep in time. It had an air of urgency, as though the writer knew that this moment would come, that someone, someday, would discover this letter. Buddy's growl grew louder, and Emily paused, glancing over her shoulder at him. He was still staring at the box, his eyes wide, his body tense. She felt a sudden chill run down her spine, but she forced herself to focus on the letter, the mystery demanding her attention. The first line struck her with a cold weight. "My dearest Emily," it began. The words hit her like a wave, pulling her deeper into something she wasn't sure she was ready for. She had never seen a letter addressed to her mother before, never heard of any correspondence from the past. The mystery of it all was suffocating, yet she couldn't look away. The letter continued, each sentence a deeper revelation, each word heavier than the last. If you're reading this, it means the time has come for the truth to be uncovered. There are things you don't know about your family, things I never had the courage to tell you. I wish I could have told you in person, but the weight of these secrets has been too much to bear. Now, it's your turn to know what lies beneath the surface. Emily's heart raced as she read on. The words were like a dam breaking, spilling secrets she had no way of preparing for. The letter spoke of a hidden part of her family's past, a past shrouded in shadows. The writer, her mother's mother, it seemed, was revealing pieces of a life she had tried to bury. There is a part of our family's history, a part of your history, that has been lost to time. A part that I locked away, hoping to keep it hidden from you and from everyone who ever knew me. But Buddy knew. He has always known. He's the one who will guide you now, lead you to the place where everything began. Emily stopped, her eyes locked on the words. The letter mentioned Buddy. Her eyes flicked to her golden retriever, who was still watching her with intense focus, his gaze never wavering from the box. The mention of Buddy in this context, an object of affection she thought she knew so well, was unsettling. How did her mother know Buddy? How was he connected to this letter, this mystery? Buddy whimpered softly, as if he could sense her growing unease. He inched closer to the box, nudging it with his nose, urging Emily to continue reading. She took a deep breath and pressed on. The box you've just uncovered is the key. Inside it, you will find the truth I was never able to speak aloud. There are photographs, and there's a letter that will reveal everything you've been searching for. It's all there, waiting for you. But understand this, Emily, not all truths are easy to accept. Some things, once known, cannot be forgotten. The words seemed to echo in her mind. Not all truths are easy to accept. Emily felt her hands tremble as she held the letter, the weight of it sinking in. What was she about to uncover? She was starting to feel a deep sense of dread mixed with curiosity, as if she were on the edge of something much larger than herself, something she had never anticipated. When you are ready, you will understand what I mean. But know this, there is danger in what you are about to uncover. You must be careful, and you must trust Buddy. He will protect you, guide you through it all. The letter ended with one final line. The past can be a prison, but Buddy is the key to your freedom. Emily dropped the letter onto the table, her mind racing. What was her grandmother trying to say? What had Buddy to do with all this? Her gaze fell on the photographs inside the box, each one as aged and fragile as the letter. She reached out, picking up the first photograph. It was a black and white image of a woman Emily didn't recognize, standing in front of a large, old house. The woman looked familiar in a way Emily couldn't place. The photo felt like a bridge to another time, a time when the house had been different, before it became her home. Emily's heart pounded in her chest. Her eyes flicked back to Buddy, who had already turned and padded slowly toward the living room, tail tucked between his legs. He stopped at the door, looking back at her with wide, dark eyes, as if to say, "Follow me." Emily didn't think twice. She grabbed the box, the photographs, and the letter, and followed Buddy into the living room. The air felt heavier now, charged with something she couldn't quite understand, but she was determined to find out what it was. Buddy stopped at the hallway door, staring intently at the space beyond. It was as if he knew exactly where to go. Emily felt a strange compulsion to follow him, as if the truth was just beyond her reach, waiting to be revealed. She opened the door, stepping into the narrow hallway, feeling the chill of the night air wrap around her. And there, in the dim light, she saw it, a hidden door at the far end, almost invisible in the shadows. Her breath caught in her throat. Buddy stood before it, waiting patiently, as if he had always known this moment would come. Emily's pulse quickened as she approached the hidden door. It seemed to be an ordinary part of the wall at first, blending seamlessly with the surrounding plaster and wallpaper. The only thing that stood out was the strange way Buddy was staring at it, his eyes locked onto the space with an intensity that was almost unnatural. Her heart hammered in her chest, and her hands trembled as she reached for the handle. It felt cold to the touch, like it had been untouched for years, perhaps even decades. Was this the secret her grandmother had been hinting at? The key to her freedom, as the letter had put it? Buddy stood perfectly still, watching her with an unwavering gaze. She could almost feel his silent encouragement, as if he was telling her that it was time. Time to face whatever had been locked away for so long. Taking a deep breath, Emily turned the handle and slowly pushed the door open. It creaked loudly, the sound echoing in the otherwise silent house. A small, narrow staircase descended into darkness. She hesitated for a moment, her mind racing with questions. What was down there? What had Buddy been leading her to all this time? But there was no turning back now. She had to know the truth. "Buddy," she whispered, "are you coming?" Without a moment's hesitation, Buddy trotted forward, his tail swaying just slightly. He seemed to be waiting for her to follow. Emily stepped forward, the cold air from the stairwell sending a shiver down her spine. The darkness swallowed her up, and she had to grip the railing for support as she made her way down. The staircase seemed endless, winding deeper into the earth, the walls damp and cool against her fingertips. At the bottom, the staircase opened into a small, dimly lit room. There were no windows here, just a flickering light that cast eerie shadows on the stone walls. The air smelled old, musty, like something had been locked away for a long time. Emily's breath caught in her throat as she looked around the room. It was small, but there was something unsettling about it. In the far corner, a large wooden chest sat, covered in dust and cobwebs. It was identical in size to the box she had found behind the wall. Could it hold even more secrets? Buddy trotted over to the chest, his nose twitching as he circled it. He stopped just in front of it, looking back at Emily as if urging her to open it. Emily's mind raced. What was she about to uncover? She felt both terrified and strangely exhilarated. Could she handle what was inside? Could she face the truth about her family, her life, and whatever connection Buddy had to all of this? There was no turning back now. Her fingers brushed over the top of the chest. It was cold to the touch, the wood rough beneath her fingertips. She could feel the weight of history pressing in on her as she carefully unlatched the heavy lock. With a loud click, the chest opened, revealing its contents. Inside, there were more photographs, hundreds of them, neatly stacked and organized. At the very top was a single photo, larger than the others, and Emily couldn't help but reach for it first. As she held it up to the dim light, her breath caught in her throat. It was a photo of her mother as a young girl, standing in front of a house she didn't recognize. But what struck her most was the figure standing next to her, an older woman with a stern expression, her dark eyes locked onto the camera. Emily's heart skipped a beat. It was her grandmother, the woman who had written the letter. But why had her grandmother been so involved in her mother's life? And why had she hidden all of this away for so long? Her mind swirled with questions, but there was no time to dwell on them. She had to keep going. She reached for the next photograph, and then the next, each one revealing more about her family's past, more about a history that had been buried beneath layers of dust and secrecy. But it was the last photo at the bottom of the chest that truly shook her to the core. It was a picture of the same house she had grown up in, but this time, it looked different. The walls were new, the floors freshly polished. And standing in front of it, with his tail wagging and his eyes full of loyalty, was Buddy. The same golden retriever, the same loving expression. Emily's breath hitched. Buddy. But how was this possible? This photo was taken decades ago, long before Buddy had ever come into her life. How could he have been there? How could he have been a part of this family's history when he hadn't even been born yet? The answers were there, hidden in the chest, buried beneath layers of family secrets. But before she could make sense of it all, she heard a faint noise, footsteps, distant but unmistakable. Someone else was in the house. Emily froze, her heart pounding in her chest. Buddy's ears perked up, and he stood rigidly at her side, his body tense. She slowly closed the chest, the sound of the lock clicking back into place echoing in the quiet room. The footsteps grew louder, closer. Someone was approaching. Emily's mind raced. Who could it be? Had someone else discovered the hidden door, or was it just her imagination playing tricks on her? Buddy growled low in his throat, a warning, his eyes darting to the doorway. But Emily didn't know what to do. She was trapped, and there was no way out. Emily's heart raced, the blood pounding in her ears. The footsteps were growing louder, the sound of shoes tapping on the wooden floor echoing throughout the room. Her hand instinctively moved toward Buddy, who was now standing perfectly still, his eyes fixed on the doorway. His growl deepened, a low rumble that vibrated through the floorboards. It was as if he could sense the danger, even though Emily had no idea who, or what, was approaching. The sound of the footsteps halted abruptly, and for a moment, the room was eerily quiet. Emily held her breath, her hand trembling as she gripped the chest in front of her. She could feel the weight of the photographs pressing against her palm, the secrets they held now seeming far heavier than they ever had before. Buddy's growl had faded, replaced by an unsettling stillness. His body was rigid, ears perked, waiting. Then, as suddenly as the footsteps had begun, a figure appeared in the doorway. A man, tall and broad-shouldered, stepped into the dim light of the room. His face was shadowed, his features hard to make out, but Emily could see the outline of his dark hair and the way his posture seemed to radiate authority. The man didn't speak right away. He just stood there, his eyes scanning the room, his gaze finally landing on Emily. There was a long silence as their eyes met. The tension in the air was thick, and Emily's stomach twisted with a mix of fear and confusion. She didn't recognize him, but something about him seemed oddly familiar, as though she had seen him in a dream or somewhere deep within her memories. Buddy's growl returned, more pronounced this time, as if the dog recognized the stranger as a threat. Emily stood frozen, unable to move, her mind racing. Who was this man? Why was he here? And what did he want with her family's secrets? The man spoke at last, his voice deep and calm, but with an edge of urgency. I knew you would find it eventually, he said, his tone almost matter-of-fact. The truth always has a way of coming out. Emily's breath hitched. The letter. The chest. The photographs. Everything was connected in ways she couldn't yet understand. But this man seemed to know far more than he was letting on. Who are you? Emily managed to ask, her voice barely more than a whisper. The man took a step closer, his eyes narrowing slightly as he studied her. My name is Nathaniel, he said. And I've been waiting for you. Emily felt a chill crawl up her spine. Waiting for her? For what? Buddy, sensing Emily's rising fear, stepped forward, positioning himself between her and Nathaniel, his body low to the ground and ready to protect her. His growl became sharper, more menacing. Nathaniel didn't flinch. Instead, he seemed to study Buddy, his gaze softening just for a moment. Don't worry about him, Nathaniel said quietly. I'm not here to hurt you. But Emily couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to his presence than just an innocent visit. The way he spoke, the way he looked at her, he knew something, and it was clear he wasn't just an ordinary visitor. Nathaniel's eyes flicked to the chest Emily had been inspecting. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Only something cold, calculating. You found the photographs, haven't you? And the letter. Emily's fingers tightened around the chest, her pulse quickening. She didn't answer him directly, but the tension in the air was enough of a response. Nathaniel sighed, his eyes briefly flicking to the photographs before returning to Emily. I guess there's no point in pretending anymore. You've uncovered the past, and now the truth is out. But you don't know everything yet. There's more you need to understand. Emily's mind was racing. What did he mean? What truth was he talking about? Why was Buddy acting so strange? More? Emily repeated, her voice growing stronger. What do you mean, more? And who are you to be involved in my family's history? Nathaniel's expression shifted, becoming more serious, his voice taking on a note of caution. I'm someone who's been watching your family for a long time. Waiting for this moment. I had hoped to prevent it, but it seems the truth has a way of catching up with everyone eventually. Emily felt her heart drop into her stomach. Her family's history? Who was this man, and what was he talking about? What did he know about her and her mother's past? I don't know what you're talking about, Emily said, her voice shaky but determined. She stood straighter, trying to regain control of the situation. But whatever it is, it's not going to scare me. You can leave now. Nathaniel chuckled darkly, a sound that sent a chill down Emily's spine. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to help you understand the consequences of your actions. You've uncovered the first piece of the puzzle. But there's more to it than you know. Emily's head spun with confusion. There was no way she could have predicted this. The photographs, the letter, the secret chest, it was all part of something bigger, something far beyond her understanding. And now, this man named Nathaniel was threatening to turn her world upside down. Buddy growled again, stepping forward, but this time, he didn't seem as aggressive. He seemed almost protective, as if he were trying to shield her from something she couldn't yet see. Emily's eyes darted between Nathaniel and Buddy, her thoughts racing. What do you want? She asked, her voice trembling despite her best efforts to stay calm. Nathaniel studied her for a long moment before answering. I want to make sure you're prepared for what's coming next, he said quietly. Because the past doesn't stay buried forever. And when it rises, it will change everything. For you, and for Buddy. The words hit her like a punch to the gut. What did he mean? How was Buddy involved in all of this? Emily didn't know what to think, but one thing was clear, nothing was going to be the same after tonight. The words Nathaniel had spoken echoed in Emily's mind, each one carrying the weight of a promise, or perhaps, a warning. For you, and for Buddy. The phrase stuck with her like a thorn, gnawing at her thoughts. What was he talking about? How was Buddy involved in all of this? And why had he been so intent on protecting her? Buddy, who had been standing watchful at her side, now seemed unusually still. His body was tense, his eyes not leaving Nathaniel for even a moment. He let out a low growl, but it wasn't the angry kind she had heard before. This was more like a warning, a sign that he was waiting for something, something only he could sense. Nathaniel didn't seem perturbed by Buddy's protective stance. Instead, he glanced at Emily, his expression unreadable. There was something in his eyes that unsettled her. He wasn't just some random stranger, he knew far too much about her family and the secrets she had uncovered. I don't know what you want from me, Emily said, her voice shaking with a mixture of fear and frustration. But you need to leave. Now. Nathaniel raised an eyebrow, and for a moment, there was a flicker of something almost like pity in his eyes. You think you're ready to face this, Emily? You think you can just walk away from all of this? Buddy growled again, stepping forward as if to shield her from Nathaniel's words. Emily reached down and placed a hand on his head, silently urging him to calm down. She didn't know what to do, but she wasn't about to let this man intimidate her. "I'm not afraid of you," Emily said, the words feeling stronger as she said them. "I just want answers. I want to know what this is all about." Nathaniel looked at her for a long time, his gaze piercing. Finally, he sighed, the sound heavy with resignation. "You really don't know, do you?" he murmured, more to himself than to Emily. "The truth is, everything you've uncovered, it's just the beginning. You've already seen some of the pieces, but there are far more waiting for you. And you're not going to like what you find." Emily's mind raced as she processed his words. She had thought she was starting to understand her family's past, but now it seemed like she had only scratched the surface. What more could there be? And why was Nathaniel so adamant about her finding out? Before she could ask any more questions, Nathaniel spoke again, his tone softer, almost sympathetic. "I don't want to scare you, Emily," he said, his voice filled with an unexpected calmness. "But there's a reason Buddy has been with you all these years. There's a reason he's been watching over you. And the truth about your family, it's tied to him. To both of you." Emily's heart skipped a beat. Her eyes darted down to Buddy, who seemed to sense her confusion. He gave her a reassuring nudge, as if telling her it would be okay. But was it? Was she ready to learn what was hidden, what had been locked away for so long? Nathaniel stepped closer, his gaze still fixed on Emily. "I know this is a lot to take in, but you need to understand one thing. There's a connection between your family and Buddy that goes beyond anything you could have imagined. He's not just a dog. He's not just some random pet. He's a protector, a guardian, and more importantly, he's tied to a promise made long ago." Emily's mind reeled. A promise? What promise was he talking about? And why was Buddy, her loyal, golden retriever, at the center of all of this? "I don't understand," Emily whispered, her voice trembling with the weight of the questions she had no answers for. "What do you mean? What promise?" Nathaniel's expression darkened, his jaw tightening as he took a deep breath. "It's not my story to tell. But it's time for you to know the truth. You've already begun to uncover the pieces, and now you need to finish what you started. There's no going back, Emily." Emily's thoughts were spinning. Her world, which had always felt so safe and familiar, was now teetering on the edge of something unknown, something dangerous. She had always trusted Buddy, always felt a deep connection to him, but now she was beginning to wonder if there was more to their bond than just a simple pet-owner relationship. Buddy's ears perked up, his head turning slightly as if listening to something Emily couldn't hear. His eyes, usually warm and comforting, were now filled with a quiet intensity. It was as if he knew the weight of the moment, as if he knew the answers to the questions that Emily could not yet comprehend. "I don't know what to do," Emily admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I'm ready for this." Nathaniel's gaze softened for a moment. "You don't have a choice, Emily. This isn't something you can walk away from. The truth will find its way to you, whether you're ready or not." Buddy let out a soft whine, as if sensing Emily's inner turmoil. She looked down at him, her heart aching with confusion and fear. What had she gotten herself into? And how was Buddy tied to all of this? For the first time, Emily felt the weight of the mystery pressing down on her. There were no easy answers, no simple explanations. She had uncovered the past, but the more she learned, the more questions she had. And with every answer came more uncertainty. But there was one thing she was certain of: she wasn't facing this alone. Buddy was with her, and he would be there to protect her, no matter what came next. Nathaniel's voice broke through her thoughts, pulling her back to the present. "You need to be prepared, Emily," he said. "The truth you're about to uncover, it's bigger than you can imagine. And there are people who will stop at nothing to make sure you don't learn it." Emily took a deep breath, her mind racing. She wasn't sure if she was ready for what was to come, but she knew one thing for sure: she had to face it. For her, for Buddy, and for the truth that had been hidden for so long. Emily could feel the room grow colder as Nathaniel's words hung in the air. The more he spoke, the more questions crowded her mind, each one more pressing than the last. She tried to steady her breath, to focus, but it was hard. She had no idea what kind of danger she was walking into, or even if she could trust Nathaniel. But there was something about him, something in his eyes, that made her believe he wasn't lying. Her mind kept circling back to Buddy. He wasn't just a dog. He was something more. Nathaniel had said it earlier, but the weight of those words was just beginning to settle in. Why had Buddy been with her all these years? Was there a connection to the family secrets she was now piecing together? And how was all of this linked to the chest, the photographs, and the mysterious letter she had found in her mother's attic? Buddy's soft whine broke through her thoughts, and Emily's gaze met his. His eyes were full of understanding, as though he knew exactly what she was feeling. She felt a pang in her chest, a mixture of confusion and fear, but also something else, something comforting. Buddy had always been there for her, and in this moment, she needed him more than ever. Nathaniel watched the exchange, his expression unreadable. He seemed to be studying Emily, waiting for her to process what he had said. "You're not going to like what I'm about to tell you," Nathaniel said, his voice low. "But you need to know the truth. It's the only way forward. There are forces at play here that go beyond your family, beyond you and Buddy. And they are far more dangerous than you realize." Emily took a step back, her mind spinning. Forces beyond her family? What was he talking about? Who were these forces he mentioned, and how did they tie into the mystery she was uncovering? "I don't understand," Emily whispered, her voice thick with disbelief. "What does all of this have to do with Buddy?" Nathaniel's expression softened for a moment, and he glanced at the dog, then back at Emily. "Buddy has been your family's protector for generations. Your mother knew this, even if you didn't. The bond between you two is stronger than you think." Emily felt her heart race. Protector? What did that even mean? Was Buddy just a dog, or was he some kind of guardian? The thought seemed absurd, but the way Nathaniel spoke made her wonder if there was more to Buddy than she had ever realized. "There's a legacy, Emily," Nathaniel continued, his tone grave. "Your family has been guarding something for years, something powerful. And now that you've uncovered the chest, the photographs, and the letter, you've opened the door to something much bigger. You've awakened something that was meant to stay hidden." The room seemed to close in around Emily. Her breath quickened, and she could feel the weight of the situation settling on her shoulders. She had no idea what Nathaniel was talking about, but she could sense the gravity of the situation. Whatever it was dangerous. And she had just stepped into a world she wasn't prepared for. "I didn't mean to uncover anything," Emily said, her voice barely a whisper. I just wanted to know the truth about my family." Nathaniel gave her a sympathetic look. "I know. But the truth isn't always what we expect, is it?" Buddy's ears flicked forward, and Emily noticed the change in his posture. He was alert, his eyes focused on the door, and his body was tense as if he were preparing for something. Emily's heart skipped a beat. What was happening? Before she could ask, Nathaniel's gaze shifted toward the window, his expression turning serious. "They're here," he said quietly. A chill ran down Emily's spine. "Who?" "The people who will stop at nothing to keep the truth buried," Nathaniel replied, his voice heavy with warning. "You've stirred something, Emily. And now, they'll come for you. They'll come for Buddy." The words hit her like a thunderclap. The room felt like it was spinning, her world tilting on its axis. Who were these people? And why would they come after Buddy? Buddy's growl deepened, and Emily instinctively stepped closer to him, feeling his warmth and his strength. She could feel his loyalty, his protectiveness, but she also felt a deep sense of dread. The situation was spiraling out of control, and she had no idea how to stop it. Nathaniel's voice was calm, but there was an edge of urgency to it now. "You need to leave. Now." Emily's heart pounded in her chest as she looked at him, trying to process what was happening. "What? Leave? Where?" "Anywhere but here," Nathaniel replied. "There's a place, not far from here, where you'll be safe. But you have to trust me. You have to trust Buddy. This is bigger than you think. And they won't stop until they get what they want." Emily glanced at Buddy, who was still standing protectively in front of her. She could see the tension in his body, the way his eyes darted around the room as if he were scanning for any potential threats. He wasn't just a dog. He was something more. And now, more than ever, she understood that she had to trust him. "I don't know if I can trust you," Emily said, her voice trembling. "How do I know you're not one of them?" Nathaniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. "You don't. But you'll have to trust me, Emily. There's no other choice. The truth is dangerous. And right now, you're the only one who can stop them." Emily's mind was racing. She had no idea what was going on, but one thing was clear, her life, and Buddy's, were in danger. The past she had tried to uncover had come alive in ways she never expected. The truth was out there, but it was buried in darkness. And there were people, dangerous people, who would stop at nothing to keep it hidden. "Come on," Nathaniel said, breaking her thoughts. "We don't have much time. We need to go." Emily hesitated, her eyes darting from Nathaniel to Buddy. She didn't know where they were going, or what awaited them, but one thing was certain, she couldn't stay here. Not anymore. Not with the danger closing in. She took a deep breath, made her decision, and nodded. "Okay. Let's go." Emily's heart was pounding as she followed Nathaniel through the back door of the house, Buddy walking closely by her side, his ears twitching at every sound. The air outside was thick with tension, as if the world around them was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, though she couldn't see anyone. The only sound was the soft rustling of the leaves in the trees, and the distant hum of the wind. "Where are we going?" Emily asked, her voice strained with fear and uncertainty. She felt a growing sense of urgency, but she still couldn't fully understand what was happening. What truth was so dangerous that Nathaniel had to get her out of the house, away from everything she knew? "Somewhere safe," Nathaniel replied, his voice low and steady. "We can't stay in the open. Not with them searching for you." Emily's thoughts raced. "Who are they? Why do they want me? Why would they come after Buddy?" Nathaniel glanced at her, his expression grim. "They've been searching for your family for years. And now, with you uncovering the truth, you've brought their attention back to you. They'll stop at nothing to keep you from finding out what your family has been hiding." The words were chilling, and they left a deep, gnawing feeling in her gut. She had no idea who they were, or what her family had been hiding, but she was beginning to understand that her life had just been turned upside down. There was no going back now. They reached a small, secluded area at the edge of the property, where the trees grew thick and dense, hiding the path ahead from view. Nathaniel stopped for a moment, turning to face her. His eyes were intense, but there was a flicker of something softer in them, a sense of urgency, of concern. "Listen to me, Emily," he said, his voice firm. "What I'm about to tell you isn't easy. But it's the only way you'll understand why everything is happening. Why Buddy is so important." Buddy, who had been walking silently beside her, suddenly stopped and let out a low whine. His gaze locked with Emily's, and for a moment, it felt as if he were trying to communicate something deeper, something she wasn't yet able to grasp. It was like he was telling her that he knew the danger, that he understood it, and he was ready to protect her, no matter what. "I know Buddy is special," Emily said, her voice trembling slightly. "But what do you mean, important? Why do they want him?" Nathaniel took a deep breath and looked around cautiously, making sure no one was in sight. "Buddy is more than just a dog. He's part of an ancient line of guardians. Your family has always had one, and Buddy has been with you for a reason." Emily shook her head, trying to make sense of what Nathaniel was saying. "Guardians? You mean, like a protector? Like a bodyguard?" Nathaniel's eyes hardened. "Exactly. But it's not just about protecting you. It's about guarding a secret. Your family, for generations, has kept something hidden, something that is more powerful than you can imagine. And Buddy? He's the one who's meant to protect it." Emily's mind whirled. She had always thought of Buddy as her loyal companion, her best friend. He had been by her side through every hard time, comforting her during the darkest moments of her life. But now, Nathaniel was telling her that there was more to Buddy's role than she had ever realized. Was he really a guardian? A protector? And what was this secret her family had been guarding? "What secret?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She couldn't help it, the question burned in her chest. What could possibly be so important that her family had spent generations hiding it? Nathaniel didn't answer right away. Instead, he scanned the area again, as though searching for something, someone. Emily could see the tension in his posture, the way he was on alert, always watching, always waiting. "There's no time to explain everything right now," he said after a long pause. "But I promise you, when we're safe, you'll know everything. You'll understand why Buddy is here, why he's been by your side all these years, and why he's the only one who can protect you from what's coming." Emily didn't know what to think. She had always known that Buddy was special, but this was beyond anything she had imagined. Was it possible that all of those years of companionship had been more than just a friendship between a girl and her dog? Was it possible that Buddy had been guarding her all this time, keeping her safe from something, or someone? Suddenly, Buddy's ears perked up again, his head turning sharply toward the forest. He let out a low growl, deep and threatening. Emily felt her heart race, her body going cold with dread. "What is it?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Nathaniel's expression darkened. "They're close," he said urgently. "We need to move. Now." Without another word, Nathaniel turned and led the way down the hidden path, his footsteps quick and purposeful. Buddy followed closely behind, and Emily, her mind still reeling from the bombshell Nathaniel had just dropped, did the same. Her heart pounded in her chest, the tension thick in the air as they moved deeper into the woods, away from the house, and away from the dangers that were closing in on them. The path was narrow, the trees thick with overgrowth, and the air was damp with the scent of moss and earth. But as they moved further in, Emily could feel the weight of what was happening. She had no idea what was coming, but she knew it wasn't good. Nathaniel kept glancing behind them, his eyes sharp as though he expected danger at any moment. Buddy, ever alert, kept pace with Emily, never straying too far from her side. His presence was both comforting and unsettling. It was clear that he was ready to protect her, but from what, exactly? "Stay close," Nathaniel urged, his voice low but firm. "We're not out of danger yet." Emily nodded, her mind still trying to make sense of everything. What had she gotten herself into? Why was her family hiding something so powerful? And what exactly did Buddy have to do with it all? The forest seemed to close in around them, the shadows growing darker with each step. But Emily didn't have time to think about that. All she could focus on was the feeling of Buddy's steady presence beside her, and the growing certainty that whatever she was about to face, she wouldn't have to face it alone. The path seemed to stretch endlessly before them, each step dragging Emily further away from the safety of her home and closer to a world she never knew existed. Nathaniel moved swiftly, his steps purposeful and deliberate, as if he were trying to outrun something, or someone. The air grew heavier with each passing moment, thick with tension and unspoken words. Emily could feel her heart racing, and her mind refused to settle. Buddy stayed close to her, his body low, eyes scanning every movement in the trees and bushes around them. He was no longer just a dog, he was a sentry, a guardian, fully alert to any threat that might be approaching. Emily had always known Buddy was special, but now it was clear that he was not just a pet. He was a protector, and his instincts were razor-sharp. She glanced at Nathaniel, his face set in grim determination. He didn't speak, but his silence spoke volumes. Emily's stomach churned with questions. The truth seemed to be just out of reach, no matter how hard she tried to grasp it. What had her family been hiding? Why was it so dangerous that people, or whatever Nathaniel had been referring to, were after them? And what did Buddy have to do with all of this? Nathaniel stopped abruptly, causing Emily to nearly walk into him. She raised her eyes to meet his, and she could see the urgency in his expression. "Stay quiet," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "We're getting close." Emily's breath caught in her throat as she tried to listen. The forest had fallen eerily silent, and she could feel the weight of the air pressing in on her. Even Buddy had stopped moving, his ears flicking back and forth, every muscle tensed. Emily held her breath, her body instinctively going still. She didn't know what was coming, but she could sense the danger surrounding them. It felt like someone, was watching them, lurking just beyond her line of sight. Her heart pounded in her chest, and her thoughts scattered in every direction. Nathaniel slowly turned to face her, his eyes locking onto hers. "Whatever happens next, you need to trust Buddy. He knows more than we do right now. If you feel scared, or if something feels off, follow his lead. He's the only one who knows how to protect you from what's coming." Emily nodded, though her mind was still a whirlwind of uncertainty. She had never thought of Buddy as anything other than a dog. Sure, he was loyal, always by her side, but this was something else entirely. How could he possibly know more than Nathaniel? More than she did? The idea seemed absurd, but the intensity of Nathaniel's expression made her hesitate to question him. Buddy's growl broke her thoughts. It was deep, rumbling in his chest, and it sent a shiver down her spine. He was staring straight ahead, his eyes fixed on a point beyond the trees, his body tense. Emily followed his gaze, but she saw nothing, only the dense thicket of the woods and shadows stretching across the path. Then, just as suddenly as the silence had settled, the air seemed to vibrate with the sound of distant footsteps, heavy, deliberate, and fast. Someone was coming. Nathaniel stiffened. "They found us." Before Emily could react, Nathaniel grabbed her arm and pulled her off the path, deeper into the woods. "Stay close to me," he ordered, his voice urgent. The sound of footsteps grew louder, closer. Emily's pulse quickened as she struggled to keep up, her heart racing with fear and adrenaline. Buddy was already ahead, weaving through the trees with an ease that almost seemed supernatural. She couldn't even see his form clearly anymore. He was a shadow, darting between the thick trunks of the trees as if he had been born to move in this darkened world. They reached a small clearing, and Nathaniel motioned for Emily to stop. His breathing was steady, but Emily could see the tightness in his jaw, the tension in his stance. He was prepared for what was coming, but Emily wasn't. She had no idea what to expect. "Hide," he whispered, as if that simple instruction would be enough to save them. Emily didn't question him. She crouched behind a thick bush, her heart hammering as she tried to steady her breath. Her eyes darted around the clearing, searching for any sign of movement, any hint of the danger Nathaniel had warned her about. And then, through the trees, she saw them. Figures emerged, moving silently but with purpose. They were dressed in dark clothes, their faces hidden beneath hoods and masks. Emily's blood ran cold. These weren't just people. These were the ones Nathaniel had spoken of, dangerous, relentless, and determined to stop them from uncovering the truth. They moved with military precision, their eyes scanning the surroundings. Emily held her breath, praying they wouldn't see her. Buddy was nowhere to be seen, but she trusted him. She had to. "Stay quiet," Nathaniel whispered again, his hand gently resting on Emily's shoulder. She could feel the weight of his words, the seriousness behind them. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about protecting something bigger than either of them. Emily didn't dare move as the figures got closer. Her mind was racing. What was their next move? How would they get out of this alive? Then, as if sensing the shift in the air, Buddy emerged from the shadows. He didn't run. He didn't bark or growl. He simply stood there, watching the figures ahead with unwavering focus. Emily's heart skipped a beat. Was he going to protect them? Was he going to fight? Buddy's stance was calm, his eyes glowing with an intense, almost eerie intelligence. Emily couldn't take her eyes off him. She had never seen him act like this before. He wasn't just a dog anymore. He was something far more powerful. The figures stopped in their tracks, as if they could feel Buddy's presence. One of them stepped forward, raising a hand as though signaling the others to halt. Emily felt her breath catch in her throat. This wasn't just a standoff, this was something else entirely. The tension was unbearable. She didn't know what would happen next, but she could feel it in her bones. Something big was about to unfold. Buddy took a slow step forward, and Emily held her breath, unsure if she was ready for whatever was about to happen. The air between the figures and Buddy was thick with tension. Emily could feel the hairs on the back of her neck stand up as the silence stretched on. Nathaniel was beside her, still as a stone, watching the scene unfold with an intensity that made Emily's pulse quicken. Buddy, ever the protector, stood motionless in front of them, his stance unwavering, his eyes locked on the figures ahead. The leader of the group, one of the masked figures, took a cautious step forward, his gaze never leaving Buddy. There was something unsettling in the way he moved, like he knew exactly what Buddy was and what he was capable of. The air seemed to grow colder, more oppressive. For a long moment, nothing happened. The figures stood perfectly still, their faces obscured by their hoods and masks, their eyes betraying nothing. Emily could barely breathe. Her heart hammered in her chest, and her thoughts spun wildly. What was happening? Why weren't they attacking? Were they waiting for something? And then, as if a switch had been flipped, the leader spoke, his voice low but clear. "You've come too far, Nathaniel," he said, his tone almost casual, as though this encounter was just another step in a much larger game. "It's time to stop running." Nathaniel didn't flinch. His jaw tightened, and Emily could see his fists clenching at his sides. "You're wasting your time," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, but there was a steely resolve in it. "You'll never get what you're after." The leader chuckled darkly, a sound that sent a chill through Emily's spine. "Oh, we'll get it. You can't hide forever, and neither can she." His eyes flicked briefly to Emily, and for a moment, she felt exposed, like they could see through her very soul. Buddy let out a low growl, his body tensing, his fur bristling. Emily couldn't see the leader's face, but she could feel the weight of his gaze on her. It was as if he could see everything, her fear, her confusion, her uncertainty, and he didn't care. "You don't know what you're dealing with," Nathaniel continued, his voice steady but laced with an underlying fury. "This isn't just about you or your mission. It's bigger than that. This is about what you've been trying to keep buried for centuries. And you'll never succeed. Not as long as Buddy's with her." The leader tilted his head slightly, his eyes narrowing as he regarded Buddy. "The Guardian," he muttered, almost to himself. "You were always meant to protect her, weren't you? Funny how a dog has more purpose than some humans." His words were laced with mockery, but there was an undeniable edge to them, a truth that none of them fully understood yet. Emily's mind raced. What was Nathaniel talking about? What did the Guardian mean? Was Buddy really part of some ancient legacy? And why was this group of masked figures so intent on finding whatever it was they were searching for? The leader took another step forward, closer to Buddy, his expression hardening. "You've made this personal, Nathaniel. But you're wasting your time. You know what happens if we don't get what we want. You've seen what we're capable of." Nathaniel didn't back down, even though Emily could see the strain in his eyes. There was a quiet desperation in his gaze, a man who had been fighting for something bigger than himself for so long, and now, it seemed like the final moment had arrived. "You don't scare me," Nathaniel said firmly. "And you're not getting anything. Not from me. Not from her." For a moment, the leader remained silent, his eyes flicking from Nathaniel to Buddy. There was an eerie calm in the way he surveyed the scene. Then, with a swift motion, he reached up and pulled the mask from his face. Emily gasped. The man who stood before her was familiar, too familiar. She had seen him before, but where? His sharp, calculating features, the dark eyes that seemed to pierce straight through her, she knew this man. "Dad?" Emily's voice trembled as she said the word, her heart skipping a beat. Nathaniel's expression faltered for just a moment, and then his eyes locked with hers. "I told you this wasn't just about us," he said quietly, a note of pain creeping into his voice. "They've been after you for a long time." The realization hit Emily like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just some random group. It wasn't just some evil organization. This was her father, her real father. The man who had disappeared from her life when she was just a child. He was standing right there, staring at her with an emotionless expression, as though she was just another part of the puzzle. Her father, the one who had abandoned her and her mother, was now one of the very people Nathaniel had been trying to protect her from. The weight of the betrayal felt like a physical blow. Her world spun, and for a moment, she could barely catch her breath. "No," she whispered, her voice cracking. "It can't be. What are you doing here?" Her father's face remained impassive, his eyes cold. "I never wanted it to come to this, Emily. But you've left me no choice." His voice was flat, devoid of warmth. "You've uncovered things you shouldn't have. You've learned too much, and now you're in the way." Tears sprang to Emily's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Her legs felt weak beneath her, but she stood her ground. "You left me. You left me and Mom all those years ago, and now you're part of this? How could you?" Her father didn't flinch. He simply nodded as if he were acknowledging something inevitable. "Sometimes, Emily, there are things bigger than family. You'll understand that soon enough." Buddy let out another growl, a deep, rumbling sound that seemed to shake the air around them. He was ready, he was prepared to protect Emily, no matter what. Nathaniel stepped in front of her, blocking her view of her father. "You're not taking her. Not now. Not ever." The air between them crackled with a palpable intensity, and for the first time, Emily felt the weight of what was happening, the choices, the secrets, the lies. There was no going back now. She had crossed a line, and now, there was no turning back. The confrontation was inevitable. As her father stood there, unmoved, Emily felt a strange sense of clarity. This was her battle now, her fight. And Buddy, the dog who had always been by her side, was ready to help her face whatever came next. Emily's head was spinning. The words her father had just spoken echoed in her mind, over and over. "Sometimes, Emily, there are things bigger than family." Her knees felt weak, but somehow, she remained standing. Nathaniel was still in front of her, like a shield, his gaze locked onto her father's unyielding form. Buddy stood alert at her side, his muscles tense, eyes unblinking, waiting for a signal. Her heart raced with anger and confusion. The man she had once longed to understand, the father who had disappeared from her life without a word, was standing there, a stranger, no, worse than a stranger. He was the enemy now. The truth was more complex than she had ever imagined. How had things come to this? How had her father become involved with these people, with these masked figures? "You think you can stop us?" her father asked, his voice steady, detached. "You think you can protect her?" He looked at Nathaniel with barely disguised disdain. "You've been playing a losing game, Nathaniel. You always were." Nathaniel's expression tightened, but he didn't move. "I don't play games, Leonard. Not anymore." Leonard, her father, smiled darkly, the corners of his lips twitching as if savoring some private joke. "You've never understood, have you?" he asked, his voice rising with an almost condescending tone. "You've spent your life running from the truth, thinking you could shield her from it. But now she's here, and there's no way to protect her from what's coming." Emily's mind raced. What did he mean? What was coming? What truth? "I don't understand," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Why? Why did you leave? Why didn't you just tell me the truth?" Her father's face remained unreadable, but his eyes held a certain emptiness, as if he had long ago stopped feeling anything for her. "Because the truth is dangerous, Emily. You wouldn't have understood. You still don't." His words were cutting, final. "I don't need to understand," she shouted, the fury building up inside her. "You left me. You abandoned me. And now you expect me to just accept that you're here with them, trying to." She couldn't even finish the sentence, the words tasting bitter on her tongue. "What do you want from me?" Her father sighed, almost as if he pitied her. "You've already given us what we wanted. You've already been part of the plan." Emily's stomach churned. What plan? She could hardly believe the words were leaving her mouth. Was he speaking in riddles? Was this all a game to him? But then, as her father spoke, something strange began to click in her mind. All the strange things that had been happening lately, all the things she had felt were just coincidences, was it possible they weren't? Was her entire life a lie? Her father's voice broke through her racing thoughts. "There are forces at play here, Emily. Forces much older than any of us. You're a part of something much bigger, something you've inherited without even knowing. Your mother knew. She had to. And now, you're going to help us bring it all to fruition." Emily's blood ran cold. The truth seemed to be just out of her reach, yet it felt like it was staring her in the face. Forces at play? Inherited? Was this all connected to whatever Buddy was? To whatever had been happening in her life since she could remember? She hadn't known it, but her father was speaking in riddles, revealing pieces of a puzzle that she had no way of completing. Nathaniel moved slightly, blocking her from view, stepping even closer to her father. "You're wrong," he said coldly. "Emily is not part of any plan. She's not some pawn in your game. Leonard's smile widened, an unsettling gleam in his eyes. It's already too late for that, Nathaniel. She's already chosen sides. He glanced at Emily. She just doesn't realize it yet. Buddy growled, low and menacing, stepping forward to stand protectively between Emily and her father. The dog's fur bristled, his entire body poised for action. It was as if he knew exactly what was at stake, and he wasn't about to let Emily fall into the hands of these people. Emily's mind spun with questions. How could she have been so blind? Was she truly part of some greater destiny, some ancient plot that she hadn't even begun to comprehend? Could Buddy, her loyal dog, have known all along? Was he connected to all of this in ways she had never considered? Her father's eyes flicked toward Buddy, his lips curling in disdain. The guardian, the protector, he sneered. You've made a mistake, Emily. You've trusted the wrong one. But Emily didn't feel that way. In her heart, she knew Buddy had only ever had one purpose, to protect her. And as the growl in Buddy's chest deepened, as his gaze remained locked on Leonard, she realized that her father's words meant nothing. Buddy was more than just a dog. He was something ancient, something powerful. The pieces of the puzzle were beginning to fall into place, but Emily was still missing too much to understand the full picture. Leonard took a step forward, his eyes now focused solely on Emily. You can't run from what you are, he said softly, almost tenderly. The truth will find you, whether you want it to or not. Emily's chest tightened. No, she said, her voice shaky but determined. I won't be part of this. I won't let you do this. Not to me, not to my family, and not to Buddy. Leonard's smile faltered, and for the first time, something flickered in his eyes, a hint of doubt. But only for a moment. I warned you, Emily, he said softly. I warned you that you couldn't escape this. Before Emily could respond, she felt Nathaniel's hand on her shoulder, pulling her back slightly. His eyes were fierce with determination. We're not done here, he said. We'll fight, Emily. We'll fight for your freedom. For your future. Buddy barked once, sharply, a signal to move. Emily nodded, her heart still racing. But she couldn't back down. Not now. Not when she finally understood what she was up against. She had her answers, or at least a glimpse of them, and she knew that this was only the beginning. The real battle had just begun. The tension in the air thickened. Emily's pulse raced, the adrenaline flooding her system. She couldn't believe it. Her father, the man she had thought was lost to her, was standing in front of her, and everything she had known was being questioned. She looked at him, her father, the same man who had abandoned her, and yet, here he was, part of this strange, terrifying world. And all the while, Buddy stayed close, unwavering, ever watchful. As Emily tried to process the shock, Nathaniel pulled her back even further, out of the line of sight of her father. His grip on her arm was firm but comforting, and she could sense his protective instincts kicking in. He wasn't just protecting her from Leonard, he was protecting her from the dangerous truth, one that she wasn't sure she was ready to face. But deep down, she knew that whether she was prepared or not, the truth was coming. We need to get out of here, Nathaniel whispered urgently, glancing over his shoulder at Leonard, who still stood unmoving, like a statue, his eyes dark and calculating. We're not safe here. Not with them knowing where we are. Emily didn't argue. She knew he was right. There was too much at stake. She glanced one more time at her father, his cold eyes still focused on her, and a surge of emotion hit her chest. The anger, the betrayal, the fear, they all collided inside her. I can't just leave, she said softly, her voice tight. Not like this. I need to know more. I need answers. Nathaniel turned to her, his brow furrowed. You'll get the answers, Emily. Just not here, and not now. They're dangerous, and we don't have time to play their game. Trust me, if you stay, you'll only put yourself in more danger. You'll never be free. Her eyes flicked to Buddy, his gaze meeting hers with quiet resolve. She could feel the connection between them, stronger than ever. In this moment, she knew she wasn't alone. Buddy wasn't just some pet, he was a guardian. He had been with her every step of the way, and somehow, deep inside, she could feel his loyalty, his unwavering support, in ways that words couldn't describe. Okay, she finally whispered, her voice filled with a mixture of defeat and resolve. Let's go. But Nathaniel, I promise you, we're going to finish this. I need to know the whole truth. I can't keep running. Nathaniel's eyes softened for a brief moment, and he nodded. We will. But we need to survive first. Buddy barked once, a sharp, urgent sound, and without hesitation, Emily followed Nathaniel as he began to move cautiously toward the back door of the warehouse, the one that led to a narrow alley behind the building. Every step felt heavy, as though the weight of the world was on her shoulders. But she wasn't going to back down. Not now. Not when the truth was just out of her reach. As they crept through the dark corridor, Emily's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. How could her father be a part of this? How could he be involved with these people, these figures who had been lurking in the shadows of her life for so long? And what had Buddy meant to all of this? He was more than a dog. That much was certain. But how? Why? They reached the alley, and Nathaniel quickly led them toward a rusty metal gate at the far end. The gate creaked loudly as Nathaniel pushed it open, and Emily's heart raced as they stepped into the night air. The cool breeze hit her face, and for a moment, it felt like she could breathe again. But only for a moment. They were far from safe. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed behind them, sharp and unmistakable. Emily's heart skipped a beat, and she turned around, her breath catching in her throat. The masked figures, the ones that had been with her father, were coming after them. Go, go! Nathaniel shouted, his voice filled with urgency. Run! Buddy barked, urging Emily forward as they sprinted down the alley. Emily's legs felt like lead, but she pushed herself harder, her mind focused on escaping the nightmare that was unfolding around her. She glanced over her shoulder, but the figures were closing in too fast. They couldn't outrun them forever. Nathaniel turned a corner, and Emily followed without thinking. They ducked into another narrow alley, the darkness swallowing them whole. But it wasn't enough. They needed a plan. They couldn't just keep running. Stop! Nathaniel shouted, his voice cutting through the night. He pulled Emily to a halt, grabbing her arms and forcing her to face him. We need to fight back. Emily's heart pounded in her chest, but her resolve hardened. How? We don't have the luxury of time. We don't even know who they are. We're outmatched, outnumbered. Nathaniel's gaze hardened. No, Emily. They're the ones who are outmatched. We just need to buy some time. We need to get to a place where we can think. And we need to make sure they don't follow us. Buddy growled low in his throat, his hackles raised. Emily turned to him, the bond between them growing stronger by the second. Buddy wasn't just a dog, he was something more, and in that moment, she realized that whatever they were running from, Buddy was their key to survival. Emily looked up at Nathaniel, determination in her eyes. I trust you. I trust Buddy. Whatever it takes, we'll fight. But we need to know where we're going. We can't just keep running forever. Nathaniel nodded, his eyes filled with quiet strength. I know. We'll find a way out of this. Together. They turned and continued running, their footsteps echoing in the silence of the night, with Buddy leading the way. Emily's heart raced, but she felt a strange sense of calm settle over her. She wasn't alone. And for the first time in a long time, she felt like she had a purpose. The fight was just beginning. The night stretched on like an endless, suffocating tunnel. The alleyways they darted through felt like a maze, each turn leading them deeper into the unknown. Emily's legs burned from the exertion, but she couldn't stop now. The masked figures weren't far behind. Every now and then, she could hear their footsteps, soft but constant, creeping closer with every breath. Nathaniel led the way with Buddy by his side, his pace steady and unhurried despite the urgency of the situation. Emily's mind was racing, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. Her father, Leonard, her past, Buddy, none of it added up. And the masked figures, they were the missing piece of the puzzle. What were they after? Why were they chasing them? We need to get to the safe house, Nathaniel said, his voice breaking through her chaotic thoughts. His eyes flicked back to make sure Emily was still close. It's the only place we'll be able to regroup. Emily didn't question him. She had no choice but to trust him, even if she didn't understand everything. How much farther? She asked, trying to catch her breath. Not far. Just a little longer. Buddy's growl broke the silence again, sharp and clear. Emily looked down at him, her heart swelling with a mix of gratitude and wonder. He was more than a pet. She had known it for some time, but now she was beginning to realize just how deep that connection went. Buddy wasn't just protecting her, he was guiding her, too. The safe house, as Nathaniel had called it, was a place hidden away from the prying eyes of the world. A place where they could finally rest, catch their breath, and figure out what came next. But Emily had no illusions. The danger wasn't over. Not by a long shot. They reached the end of the alley, where an old, weathered door appeared, nearly hidden from view by the shadows. Nathaniel moved quickly, checking for any signs of danger, before he gently pushed the door open. It creaked loudly, and Emily winced, her nerves on edge. Every sound felt like it could bring those masked figures closer. But no one followed. At least not yet. Once inside, Emily blinked, her eyes adjusting to the dim light. The room they entered was small and sparse, but it felt safe. The walls were lined with bookshelves and maps, and there was an old wooden table in the center, covered with papers and files. It was clear that Nathaniel had spent a lot of time here, but there was something else, something almost familiar. This place is more than just a safe house, isn't it? Emily asked, her voice quiet. Nathaniel glanced at her, his face hard to read. It's a place of knowledge. A place where we can figure out what's really going on. Emily turned to Buddy, who had settled on the floor near the door, his eyes scanning the room like he was making sure it was secure. She crouched down next to him, her fingers running through his fur, grateful for the comfort he gave her in the midst of the chaos. She couldn't ignore the connection she felt to him. There was something deeper between them, something she was only beginning to understand. "We've been running for so long, Nathaniel," Emily said, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this." Nathaniel looked at her, his expression softening for the briefest moment. "You're stronger than you think, Emily. I know this isn't easy, but we're closer to the truth now. You're closer to the truth." Emily looked away, staring at the map on the wall. There were markings all over it, locations, routes, and symbols she didn't understand. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together, but there was still so much missing. She needed answers. "Your father, Leonard, is part of something much bigger than either of us could have imagined," Nathaniel continued, walking over to one of the bookshelves. He pulled out a thick leather-bound book, flipping through it with practiced ease. "This," he said, showing her a page covered in symbols that seemed both ancient and alien, "is the key to everything. Your father is involved in something far older than the both of us. And you're a part of it." Emily's stomach dropped. "I don't want to be part of it," she said, her voice shaky. "I don't even know what this is. What they are. I just want to be safe." Nathaniel closed the book gently, his eyes locking onto hers with a look of quiet understanding. "I know. But safety isn't always a luxury we get to choose. The world isn't what you think it is, Emily. You've been living in a bubble, protected from the truth. But that's over now. The world you knew is gone." "Gone?" Emily repeated, her voice cracking. "What do you mean? I don't understand." Nathaniel exhaled slowly, walking toward her. He stopped just a few feet away, his presence imposing yet calming. "The truth is, your father's not just a man. He's part of a network of people who've been manipulating events for centuries. And you, Emily, are part of a prophecy, whether you accept it or not." Her mind whirled with the words. Prophecy? What was he talking about? Was her father truly a part of this? How could she be a part of it, too? She had never felt anything special about herself, and now, she was supposed to believe she was somehow tied to an ancient prophecy? "I don't want to be a part of this," she said, the words tumbling out in a rush. "I just want a normal life. I didn't ask for this." "I know," Nathaniel said softly, his voice filled with quiet empathy. "But sometimes, Emily, the life we want isn't the life we get. And sometimes, we don't get a choice in the matter. But you do have a choice now. You can fight. You can fight for what you believe in, or you can let them win." Emily's heart pounded in her chest. She felt the weight of his words, the enormity of the choice before her. She could run forever, but she knew deep down that running wouldn't change anything. The truth was out there, and if she didn't face it, she would always be running from it. And then, in that moment, she made a decision. "We fight," she said, her voice steady, filled with determination. "We fight for the truth. We fight for my freedom." Nathaniel nodded, his eyes filled with pride. "Then let's prepare. It's going to be a long fight, Emily. But you're not alone anymore. We'll fight together." As the night stretched on, Emily found herself staring at the map on the wall, her mind made up. The battle wasn't over. In fact, it was just beginning. The room grew colder as the hours ticked by, and Emily's mind continued to churn with the new, impossible truth she had just learned. She had thought of her father as a man with his own faults, someone who had abandoned her for reasons she never fully understood. But now, everything she thought she knew felt like a lie. Her father, Leonard, was part of a much bigger picture, one that was tied to something ancient, something powerful. Nathaniel stood silently across from her, scanning the room with a sharp, watchful eye. Buddy lay at her feet, his gaze flicking from Emily to the door as if he was waiting for something to happen. Emily couldn't shake the sense of urgency that hung in the air. She could feel it deep in her bones, time was running out. The masked figures were still out there, and Leonard wasn't far behind them. But more than that, she felt the weight of the prophecy pressing down on her. It was like she had been chosen for something she didn't want and didn't understand. Nathaniel broke the silence first, his voice low but urgent. "Emily, we need to go through everything we have. The prophecy is the key to stopping them, but we don't have all the pieces yet. We need to understand what it means." She nodded, her throat tight. "But, what does it mean? What does it say about me?" Nathaniel took a deep breath, then reached for the book he had shown her earlier. He opened it to the same page, the symbols and drawings swirling in her mind, confusing and cryptic. "I don't fully understand it yet," he admitted. "But it's not about you being chosen, Emily. It's about your connection to the power they're trying to control. Your father, Leonard, he's been involved in this for years. But you're the one who can stop it." Emily's stomach twisted at his words. "Stop what? What are they trying to do?" He looked at her, the gravity of the situation sinking in. They're trying to harness the power of this ancient force. It's not just about wealth or control. It's about something bigger than that. Something that could change the entire world. Emily stepped back, her heart racing. What force? What are you talking about? Nathaniel's gaze flickered to Buddy, who remained still, as though he understood more than Emily could comprehend. The force that connects us all. The one that gives life and takes it away. The one that can destroy everything in its path if it's controlled by the wrong hands. Emily's mind spun. She was trying to grasp the enormity of what Nathaniel was saying, but it was too much. Her mind wanted to reject it, to pretend this was just some bad dream. But the cold, hard reality was staring her in the face. She was caught in the middle of a battle far bigger than she could have imagined. Buddy growled low, a sound so subtle, yet it caught Emily's attention. She looked down at him, and he met her eyes, his expression filled with an unsettling calmness. There was something in his eyes that made her shiver. Something ancient. Nathaniel noticed her gaze and nodded. Buddy isn't just a dog, Emily. He's part of this too. He's the key to understanding the force we're dealing with. He's been protecting you for a reason. Emily's breath caught in her throat. What do you mean? Buddy's he's just my dog. My best friend. He's always been there for me. Nathaniel shook his head. Buddy is more than that. You just don't see it yet. There's a reason why he's so attached to you. Why he's always been there when you needed him most. He's been guiding you, protecting you because you're connected to something greater than yourself. Emily felt a wave of confusion wash over her. So what am I supposed to do? How do I stop this force from being controlled? I'm just a regular person. Nathaniel stepped closer, his eyes intense. You're not just a regular person, Emily. You're the key to breaking their hold. You have the power to stop them, but you need to learn how to control it. You need to unlock it before they do. Her mind raced. She didn't understand what was happening, but one thing was clear, the stakes were higher than she ever thought. This wasn't just about her. It was about the fate of the world. And that weight, that responsibility, felt heavier with each passing second. Where do we start? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Nathaniel looked at her, his expression softening. We start with the truth. You need to learn what you're really capable of, what you can do with the power inside you. And Buddy will help guide you through it. Emily glanced down at Buddy again, this time with a mix of awe and fear. She had always known there was something special about him. But now, it felt like the weight of the world was on her shoulders, and Buddy was her only hope of surviving it. Nathaniel turned back to the book, scanning the pages. There's a ritual, a way to unlock the power you have inside of you. But we need to be careful. If we do it wrong, if we rush into it without understanding, it could have disastrous consequences. Emily's heart pounded in her chest. She wanted to learn, to understand, to fight back against those who had stolen her life and threatened everything she cared about. But the fear of the unknown gnawed at her. What if she wasn't strong enough? What if she failed? You're not alone, Nathaniel said, sensing her hesitation. We'll do this together. But we have to act fast. They're getting closer, and if they find us, it could be too late. Emily took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision settle on her shoulders. She looked at Buddy, her constant companion, the one who had always been there for her, and she nodded. Let's do it, she said, her voice steady with newfound determination. Nathaniel smiled, though it was tinged with worry. All right, then we begin. The next few hours felt like a blur to Emily. Nathaniel had prepared the room, pulling out old maps, books, and artifacts. Everything he did seemed calculated, as if he had done this before, and though Emily wanted to ask him countless questions, she knew now wasn't the time. The urgency in his movements made her stomach tighten, every second mattered. Buddy had settled in a corner, watching them both with a keen, almost knowing gaze. Emily kept stealing glances at him, wondering what it all meant. Nathaniel kept saying that Buddy was part of this larger mystery, but Emily wasn't sure how a dog could fit into something so immense. She couldn't ignore the instinct in her heart, though. There was something undeniably special about him, she just hadn't fully understood it until now. Nathaniel paced back and forth, muttering to himself as he flipped through the pages of an ancient tome. It was filled with intricate symbols, some of which looked almost familiar to Emily, but she couldn't place them. She felt an unease growing within her, as if the room itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Are you sure about this? She finally asked, breaking the silence. Her voice was quiet, almost timid, despite the determination that had taken root in her. I mean, what if we do this and it makes things worse? What if I can't control whatever's inside me? Nathaniel paused, looking at her with an expression that was both reassuring and full of caution. I'm sure. But you need to understand something, Emily. The power inside you is more than just something to be controlled. It's a force that connects everything. The reason you've always felt different, the reason Buddy's always been so protective, it's because you are a part of this. The world, the ancient force, it's all connected, and so are you. This isn't just about you finding the truth, Emily. It's about you embracing it, understanding who you are. Her heart raced. Could she really do this? Could she unlock this power, whatever it was, and control it? Or was it too dangerous? Too much for her to handle? Before she could voice another concern, Nathaniel moved closer, kneeling beside her. His eyes softened. I won't let you face this alone. But you need to trust me, and trust yourself. This is your path to walk. Emily felt a knot form in her stomach, but she pushed it down. She had no other choice. She wasn't going to run anymore. The path ahead may have been unclear, but one thing was certain. She had to face whatever was coming. Okay, she said, her voice steady now. Let's do it. Nathaniel smiled, then turned his attention to Buddy, who was still watching them both with those strange, wise eyes. Buddy, you know what to do. To Emily's surprise, the dog didn't just react with a simple wag of the tail or an eager bark. Instead, Buddy slowly rose to his feet, his posture serious and purposeful. Without a single sound, he trotted over to a hidden corner of the room and began scratching at a section of the floor. Emily blinked in surprise, watching as the floorboards creaked, shifting slightly beneath the pressure of Buddy's paws. Nathaniel's eyes widened in recognition. This is it, he muttered, reaching for the nearby floorboard and prying it open. Beneath it, Emily could see a small, darkened compartment, something she had never noticed before. Nathaniel pulled open the compartment, revealing a small, glowing stone nestled inside. The glow was faint but undeniable, casting a soft blue light across the room. Emily felt her breath catch in her throat. It was beautiful, but it was also unsettling. That stone is the key, Nathaniel said softly, reaching for it. This is what your father was after. This is what the masked figures are after. It holds the power to unlock the force, and you are the one who can harness it. Emily's heart began to beat faster as she watched Nathaniel carefully lift the stone from its resting place. The air in the room seemed to shift, becoming heavier with each passing second. I need you to hold it, Emily, Nathaniel instructed. It will connect you to everything. To the force. To what you're meant to become. With trembling hands, Emily reached out, hesitating for just a moment before her fingers closed around the stone. The instant she touched it, a jolt of energy surged through her. The sensation was unlike anything she had ever felt, cold and hot, sharp and soothing all at once. It was as if the stone was alive, pulsing with its own heartbeat. Buddy's growl reverberated through the room, low and deep. His fur stood on end as if he could feel the energy coursing through Emily. Relax, Nathaniel said, his voice gentle yet firm. Let it in. Let the energy flow through you. Emily closed her eyes, trying to steady her breathing, her mind racing. She felt like she was being pulled in every direction at once. It was as though the walls around her were closing in, but then, in an instant, they fell away. Her mind exploded with visions, flashes of distant landscapes, ancient ruins, symbols she had never seen before, all swirling around her in a chaotic dance. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it stopped. Emily's vision cleared, and she found herself standing in the room, holding the glowing stone, panting as if she had just run a marathon. Her chest felt tight, her breath ragged. The stone in her hand had grown warmer, but the connection to it had deepened, more profound than ever before. What was that? She asked breathlessly, her voice trembling. Nathaniel took a step toward her, his face filled with awe and something else, relief? That was just the beginning. You've unlocked a small portion of the force. There's more to it, but now, we can finally start understanding it. Emily's hands shook as she slowly pulled the stone away from her body. It was still glowing faintly, but she felt different. Like something had shifted within her. The power wasn't just a force outside of her, it was inside her now. And it was only a matter of time before she learned to control it. Nathaniel looked at her, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. You did it. You've unlocked it. You're one step closer. But as he spoke, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The calm they had felt in the room was suddenly disrupted. She could feel it in her bones. The masked figures were coming. And with them, the final battle for control of the ancient force had begun. Emily couldn't shake the unease that clung to her. Even though the power of the stone had surged through her like nothing she had ever felt before, a chilling presence lingered in the room. The air itself felt thicker, as though the very walls were listening, waiting, watching. Buddy had retreated to the corner again, his eyes trained on the door, his stance rigid. The calm she had just felt now seemed fleeting, like it was slowly being replaced by something much darker. Nathaniel, however, remained composed. His eyes scanned the room, never staying in one place for too long. They're coming, he said quietly, his voice tense. The masked figures. They felt the awakening. Emily's pulse quickened, the weight of the situation crashing down on her. "How do you know? How can you be sure?" she asked, her voice betraying her fear. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he took the stone from her hands, his fingers brushing against hers. For a brief moment, she could still feel the energy inside of her, pulsing in time with her heartbeat. But as Nathaniel examined it, his expression darkened. "The stone, it's changing," he murmured, more to himself than to Emily. He held it up to the light, watching the faint glow flicker and shift, as if it had a life of its own. "This is not just a key to the force. It's the source. It's like a beacon, drawing them closer." Emily's stomach churned. She had only just unlocked the stone's power. How could the figures already be so close? It felt like she was caught in a race against time, and every passing second pushed her closer to an uncertain future. "What do we do now?" Emily asked, her voice shaking despite her best efforts to stay calm. Nathaniel placed the stone back into the hidden compartment in the floor and closed it with swift precision. "We prepare," he said, his voice steady despite the urgency of the situation. "They won't stop until they get what they want, Emily. And right now, you're the only one who can stop them." Buddy growled softly, a low rumble that sent a chill down Emily's spine. She glanced at him, and for the first time, she noticed something in his eyes, a warning, almost. He knew more than anyone, and it made Emily wonder just how much he had been protecting her from. Nathaniel turned toward the door, his face hardening. "We don't have much time. We need to get to the old church. It's the only place where we can hide long enough to figure out our next move." Emily felt a sharp pang of dread in her chest. "The church? What's there?" He hesitated, his eyes flickering back to the stone. "It's a safe place. It's where the last of the Guardians gathered. They left behind clues about how to defeat the figures and stop the force from falling into the wrong hands. But it's not safe there forever. Once they realize we've gone there, they'll come for us. But we don't even know how to stop them," Emily said, frustration and fear mingling in her voice. "We don't have all the answers. We don't know what they want. We don't know what's coming next." Nathaniel's gaze softened, but only for a moment. "I know. And that's why we need to move fast. The longer we wait, the harder it will be to protect you and stop them." Emily nodded, her heart hammering in her chest. Everything in her screamed to run, to find somewhere far away where she could escape it all, but she couldn't. This was her reality now, and there was no turning back. "I'm ready," she said, though her voice trembled. She was scared, terrified even, but there was no room for fear now. She had no choice but to face what was coming head-on. Nathaniel moved toward the door, his steps measured and calm. "We need to be quick. Pack only what you can carry. We don't have time for anything else." Buddy padded up to Emily's side, his presence a small comfort. She placed a hand on his head, giving him a reassuring pat, though she couldn't quite shake the feeling that he was more than just a dog. There was a wisdom in his eyes that made her wonder if he had always known what was coming. As she grabbed her bag, the reality of their situation began to settle in. She had no idea what they would find at the old church, what answers were hidden there, or if they'd even survive long enough to find them. But there was one thing she knew for sure: she wasn't alone. And that, in itself, was a small comfort. Nathaniel's voice broke her thoughts. "We need to leave now." Emily nodded, her heart racing as she grabbed the last of her belongings and headed toward the door. Buddy followed her, his body tense, ears pricked forward, and Emily couldn't help but wonder how much more danger they were about to walk into. But there was no turning back now. They moved quickly through the house, and as they stepped outside, Emily felt a cold gust of wind whip through the air. The night had fallen, but the streets were unnervingly quiet. The ominous silence seemed to press in on them, making every step feel like a march toward the unknown. She couldn't help but glance over her shoulder every few seconds, half expecting someone, or something, to appear from the shadows. Nathaniel walked with purpose, leading the way toward the old church. Emily followed closely behind, Buddy keeping pace at her side. Her heart pounded in her chest, her thoughts swirling with unanswered questions and fear. She couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was waiting for them, just around the corner, lurking in the darkness. And as they neared the church, Emily's breath caught in her throat. There, standing at the entrance, were figures she hadn't seen before, but whose presence felt all too familiar. She didn't know who they were, but one thing was certain: they had found them. The figures stood motionless at the entrance of the old church, their faces obscured by black hoods and masks. They didn't move, but their presence was overwhelming. It was as if the very air around them held a weight, a pressure that made it hard for Emily to breathe. Every instinct in her screamed that this was the moment of no return. Buddy growled low in his throat, his body tense, as though ready to spring into action. Emily placed a hand on his fur, trying to steady herself. She felt Nathaniel's gaze on her, sharp and knowing, but she didn't need to look up to know what he was thinking. They had to face them, now. Nathaniel's voice was steady as he whispered, "Stay close, Emily. Don't let go of the stone. It's our only chance." Emily nodded, the small, glowing stone still resting against her chest beneath her coat. The warmth it radiated felt almost comforting, but it didn't drown out the fear gnawing at her insides. She could feel its power, the force that had awoken inside her, but it felt different now, darker, heavier. Almost like a storm ready to break loose. And those masked figures, they were the storm. She took a step forward, and without warning, the figures moved, their cloaks swirling in the air like shadows. Their voices were muffled but unmistakable, an eerie chant that sent a cold shiver down her spine. The ground beneath her seemed to tremble, the air thickening as though the very atmosphere had changed. One of the figures took a step forward, his movement deliberate. "Emily," the voice hissed, distorted through the mask but somehow unmistakable. "You cannot hide from what you are. You cannot escape your destiny." Nathaniel stepped forward, positioning himself between Emily and the figure, his expression unwavering. "You don't control her. You never will." The figure raised a gloved hand, and suddenly, Emily felt the weight of his gaze like a vice tightening around her chest. She gasped, her breath caught in her throat. The power within her stirred, reacting instinctively, but she couldn't control it, not yet. "Let her go," Nathaniel warned, his voice gaining strength. "You're too late." Emily's head spun. What was happening? Her hands shook as she gripped the stone tighter. She wanted to run, to escape the looming figures, but she couldn't, her feet were rooted to the ground, as though the very earth was holding her there. The figure lifted his head, his voice cold as ice. "It's already begun. The force is awakening. And with it, so too will your true power, Emily. You can't stop what's coming. You were born for this moment." The words rang in her mind, a warning, a threat. Her heart pounded harder, and she realized what was happening. The power inside her wasn't something she could just control. It was calling to her, pulling her toward something, toward the very force they were all chasing. And she didn't know if she was strong enough to control it, to use it for good, or if it would consume her. She looked at Buddy. The dog was calm now, watching the figures intently, but his stance was defensive, protective. He wasn't just a dog. She knew that now. He was part of this too. He was connected to her in ways she couldn't fully understand, but he was with her, and for now, that was enough. "Emily, focus," Nathaniel urged, his voice pulling her back to the moment. "The power is inside you. You have to believe in it. You have to use it." She nodded, taking a deep breath. She wasn't alone in this. She had to fight, for herself, for Nathaniel, and for Buddy. The figure raised his hand again, and this time, Emily felt a surge of power pulse through her. The stone warmed in her hands, glowing brighter. It wasn't just a stone, it was an anchor, a connection to everything that was happening. It was calling to her, urging her to tap into the force, to understand it. "Let it in, Emily," Nathaniel whispered, his eyes never leaving her. "Trust yourself." For the first time since she had touched the stone, Emily let go of her fear. She opened herself to the power. She focused on it, feeling it flow through her like a river, like a storm. It was wild, but it wasn't uncontrollable. She could feel it, guiding her, steering her. The ground trembled again, but this time it was different. The energy wasn't just responding to her fear. It was responding to her will. The figure stepped back, his eyes narrowing as he saw the change in Emily. "No? This is impossible." But it was happening. Emily could feel the power building within her, rising like a wave, ready to crash. "I am not your weapon," she declared, her voice stronger now, echoing in the night. "You can't control me. You never could." The masked figures recoiled, as if her words were a physical blow. The energy surrounding them began to waver, crackling with tension. Emily's heart raced, but she didn't falter. She was done being afraid. The storm inside her was real, but she was the one who held the reins. Buddy barked sharply, the sound echoing through the night. His voice was a signal, a call to action. Emily looked at him and nodded, feeling the bond between them, understanding the role they both had to play in this battle. Nathaniel stepped back, a look of determination in his eyes. "It's time. Finish it." Emily closed her eyes for a split second, gathering every ounce of strength she had. She focused on the force within her, pulling it from the depths of her being. The stone flared in her hands, glowing so brightly it illuminated the entire churchyard. With a final, forceful push, she released the energy. The blast shot outward, a wave of power that swept over the figures, knocking them back. The air crackled with energy, the force swirling around them as the figures stumbled, trying to regain their footing. "Go," Nathaniel said urgently, his voice filled with authority. "They're not gone, but we've bought ourselves time." Emily didn't need any more encouragement. She turned to run, Buddy by her side, Nathaniel close behind. The masked figures, still reeling from the blast, began to stir, but Emily knew, this was only the beginning. The real battle wasn't over. Not yet. As they fled into the night, the world around them seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for the final confrontation. But one thing was clear: Emily wasn't the same person who had arrived at this church. She had awakened the force inside her, and nothing would ever be the same again. As the dark night surrounded them and Emily, Nathaniel, and Buddy fled into the unknown, one thing was clear: the battle had only just begun. The power inside Emily was now awakened, and she was ready to face whatever dangers lay ahead. The journey, the truth, and the fight for survival had only begun. The storm was coming, and Emily had no choice but to face it head-on, with her loyal companions by her side. But what's next for Emily? What challenges will she face on this path? Will she conquer the forces that seek to control her, or will the storm consume her? If you've enjoyed this thrilling, emotional adventure, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more. Stay tuned for the next chapter in this incredible journey. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Thank you for being part of the story, and remember, this is just the beginning. The power inside Emily is only growing, and the fight for her future is only getting started. Don't forget to hit that notification bell, so you're the first to know when the next episode is live. Stay with us as the adventure unfolds.